Shirley here with Sirius Talisman. This is Ascendant 9 degrees Cancer, ruled by the Moon, Moon Hour, Moon 23 degrees Sagittarius, and Jupiter 22nd degree of Cancer, applying to square Chiron and Aries, ruling over the midheaven at 24 degrees Pisces, conjoining Saturn retrograde and Rahu. So, what happens after the self-defense? And I'd like to share with you a story that happened to me in an apartment that I lived in, and I have to walk out because of the weird rituals that they were doing that had to do with trafficking, sexual boundary violation, and so on, um, with eventually exposing the realtor that asked me if I am sleeping with my mom. I kid you not. So I happen to not sleep with my mom. Um, And that exposed something that was really surprising to me. So much so that I said, I'm sorry, this is boundaries that I don't even have to set. And then there was weird, unwanted energy in basically the apartment. Eventually, it would lead to a crisis of me not only leaving, but having all of my stuff left there. Um, some of my cats were sacrificed, and me basically not even looking for a certain cat because I was afraid to have them sacrificed by people. But not only that, before that, that would of course abrupt any type of funneling resources to dark occult human traffickers. But not only that, before that, I did a lot of rituals of purifying and protecting the household using my voice, movement, talismans, smoke or sage, a lot of things, and basically, eventually, when I had to walk out, they left evidence. Unfortunately, they slaughtered the cat in my bedroom and made a heart shape of his blood, which shows that there are bloodletting rituals involved, and they attempted to confiscate my phone. So my previous phone was down, and then my Facebook account was down. But then something, and I went through a lot. I'm still setting boundaries to that. There were a lot of people trying to suddenly photograph me on the train, and suddenly all kind of ladies that a woman that was trafficking her daughter suddenly trying to approach me with, this is what men like, this is what this, and I'm like, I never asked you that. um, and all kinds of weird things being sent my way, attempting to traffic me, doing dark rituals, which can all be visible with all of the satellites that is there, and all of the technology. Um, so all of that happening prior and during 7th of October. What's happening afterwards is really interesting, because then things begin to accumulate. There's a tenant that told the neighbors what was going on, told the neighbors what she's been experiencing in the apartment, and eventually had to leave. Um, Her stuff there, photographs of a cat there. Probably the neighbors did go to see what's happening in that apartment, because they would every once in a while check to see what's up with me. So they very likely saw the cat that was sacrificed and probably left to rot there. And they very likely witnessed the screamings of the many times where I said those who try to traffic me or hurt me will not have a home, because they were trying to hurt me in my home. Not only that, this was an apartment where many people have been changing a lot, unlike the other three apartments where people have been living for years and years. So even the neighbor with the mansion next to our mansion, I met her in the city the other day, and we had a nice conversation. And she knew about the changing resident in that particular unit, which is very unusual. In the beginning, I tried to think of feng shui reasons, um, but I don't have the point in feng shui that's associated with human trafficking and dark rituals that were done. More and more information accumulated, but the great missing happened. There's this weird neighbor that is shouting, that is this, that is that. At first it looked like, oh, that neighbor might be weird, but wait a second, the neighbor from the down floor actually told me that before me there was a couple that were fighting with one another all the time. And yeah, unwanted psychologists that interfere with the jurisdiction against them regarding kidnapping children to perhaps prospective Peter rings are not welcomed here. And so at the beginning it might look like there's something off with that neighbor. But was it something off with any of the other residents? So what's the common denominator? Is something off with that particular unit? In that missing, the things are left in the unit with that weird cat corpse. And now, very likely, the realtor is kind of feeling weird about showing themselves in the apartment. And they have to report the landlord what is going on. Granted that the landlord is not in it. So this is what happens. The money has stopped being funneled to the trafficking, all the while all the authorities, the tax authorities, the real estate authorities, the banking authorities are fully aware because they got the notice that there was human trafficking in this apartment using dark occultism, and even me warning the police to protect themselves from dark occultism before addressing this case. Whatever one would see in the bedroom would be a talisman of Algol, together with dead bodies upon dead bodies of human traffickers, exposing the weird espionage spy realtor that was involved with that. And that could only be seen if one breaks into the bedroom or from a satellite. So obviously, if the targeted people were human traffickers, then that was defense, which does not apply, which is not dark occult practice, because everybody has the right to defend themselves from human trafficking, and the person that escaped human trafficking, which means they have full diplomatic immunity. So what's happened in that void part? That void becomes concrete evidence. That void becomes undeniable, and the family that just had another child, a girl, must reconsider its residence. So does the neighbor that has a teenager that lives with her, and definitely the neighbor down floor that is a single mother. This is the power of boundary setting. Erect a boundary and you will discover what was the reason that you had to set it to begin with. So for me, I was basically trying to purify the place with very tender means, couple of cloves, some sage, and then chanting or dancing, then setting boundaries with my voice, not even at all considering that the realtor might be in it, let alone maybe the landlord. Not only that, there was an attempt to contact my mother and tell her that I would be accused of trespassing for escaping human trafficking, for which I am fully eligible for full diplomatic immunity. Why? Because I left my stuff in a place that's unsafe for me to return to. After such a thing, in which I'm still setting boundaries to the many attacks towards me, that border psychopathy, not border, it's actually psychopathy to persecute a tenant for that long in those intense ways. This is what happens when we set a boundary. More and more of the reasons, this actually calms the cat. She's so calm right now. More and more of the reasons that we had to set that boundary to begin with begin to show. And it becoming more and more evident of why was I in a position that I had to set a boundary to begin with. Because those were not boundaries that I would even, like, this is not even a boundary that one would think one need to set. I'm not even supposed to be in a situation where I need to set these type of boundaries. So this is what happens when people set a boundary and then they disappear from the place where their resources would still be funneled to traffickers. nor do they rent other apartments without making sure that no more human trafficking and no more of that dumb fuckery that persecuted me to where I ran away to. The many attempt to curse my housing, my sanity. Along the years, apparently it's a part of targeted individuals that meant to basically depopulate or try to turn people into criminals, to deprive them of their rights. This is what happens when we transmute, when we set a boundary. We basically transmute the lower astral sent to attack the light. This is also what happened to me in 2007 when I began to set a very clear boundary to attempts to cast spells and turn and basically drag me into a personality cult coming from Heidelberg, but also from Israel, associated with forced religion, attempt to do forced marriage by hypnosis and creation of trauma bonding, attempts to traffic, attempts to destabilize me, harm my ability to make an income, pervasive rituals of dark occult nature. At that same time, it was the same rituals that were done around the time of kidnapping of Madeleine that is associated with the Nazi cult that was meant to attack the light. Now again, when we basically address that openly and put that in the light, this is where those tactics are exposed. And as Anneke Lucas put it so bravely, you start having courage, you start having more courage, because indeed, those things can't continue. Those are the results of even when one set a boundary, even if they're no longer in the place where they set the boundary, basically The tower of cards that was built around them to isolate them, to confiscate them, to kidnap them, to defame them, to dethrone them, to humiliate them, to make of them insane, to target them, to make them homeless, to get them to addiction, to destabilize them, becomes apparent in the billions and is becoming nullified, attacking only those who come to attack people,